Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Misfit Podcasts, where I'm talking to leaders about one of the most important aspects of our careers, tackling career transitions. On this week's episode, my guest and we just got straight into it. I didn't even give him a proper introduction. Candidly, he was also one of my very first guests, so I was a little bit nervous. This week, Shivram Vaideeswaran joins the podcast. I had the great fortune of working for Shivram when I was at Uber. He is a creative and innovative marketer with this great balance of IQ and EQ. And since I met him, we've talked so much about what it means to grow up in the corporate world and figuring out what it is that you're really good at. So when I started Misfits, I chose him to be my very first guest because I knew that he would not only drop a ton of great insights, but he would also give me some really great critique as I was building and shaping my vision. With over 20 years of experience as a marketing leader, he's helped brands like Uber, Taco Bell, and Jamba revamp their global brands and address challenges across multiple business verticals. His focus has always been on strengthening businesses for their long-term sustainable growth. And that includes investing in businesses' core asset, their people. Currently, Shivram leads brand strategy and transformation at Yahoo and AOL brands. The sassy light is on, which means it's time to dive into another great conversation. Please welcome Misfit Shivram Vaideeswaran. All right, so we're going to talk about, speaking of career transitions, we're going to talk a little bit about career transitions. And, a little, as you and I've kind of talked about in the past, a lot of career transitions really come down to, again, figuring out what it is that you ultimately want to do, how you want to be, where you want to go, and knowing who you are in that professional world. And how do you bring together that personal and the professional and make it all into these one thing? So I guess with that, Shivram, I'd love to have you start us off with, tell me a little bit about how you introduce yourself to the professional world today.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start with just introducing myself in general, which is I'm Shivram Vaideeswaran. I've had the lovely pleasure of spending the past couple of years working with you, which was awesome, and I miss it every day. I am currently in Atlanta, and I've been in kind of the marketing world for the past almost 20 years now, which is
it's scary. We're getting there.
Yeah, I'm not. Hey, I was joking today. Someone was like, "What kind of styling product do you use?" And I'm like, "Rogaine." It's where my age comes in. So I would say, if you had to describe kind of my path within the marketing world, it's really been call me when your brand needs help. That's the best way I would describe it. And I've spent really the past 20 years helping to shape and mold brands and bring them back into culture and rethink their positioning and their value proposition and the product lineup that should best fit that new vision, and really thinking about how to integrate it into culture. And I've had a lot of fun doing that across a couple of industries now, and have kind of continued to use this as an opportunity to kind of hone what I really love to do.
When you first got into this, and whatever that first job was that you said, okay, yeah, you've gotten to this now after 20 years, you can kind of narrow down this, one nice clean sentence of how you introduce yourself. Is this what you thought it was going to be when you got into doing brand marketing? I'm assuming that brand marketing was kind of that first job out of college, if you will.
Yeah, I will say no. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I worked in retail finance, and I worked in government consulting after college, and I was a marketer. Got a degree in marketing. DC is not a city for marketers, and so I kind of found my way into cool jobs and got some experience. And I ultimately learned I want to do marketing, and none of this is marketing. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to graduate school, and after graduating, I thought I was going to make commercials. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work at an agency. Mm-hmm. I wanted to build creative. I thought that was my home. And, during the recruiting process, I got recruited to come to Taco Bell and really work as an associate brand manager. And I was like, you get to make, commercials, and you get to do all these cool things, and you get to work on, very traditional marketing. This sounds really exciting. And then I jumped into it and I learned, I was like, oh, brand management is like, this is like project management, and product management all rolled up into one.
Yeah.
You're worrying about supply chain, and you're thinking about product insights, and you're working on media planning and, creative strategy. And like, it was so much more, and I fell in love with it. And I
Yeah.
actually like really love the idea that you can take something like a product from insight to execution and get to see it live and potentially in someone's hands. And you're like, I made that. That's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
and as I went through even the creative process and spent some time working with agencies and things like that, I realized that's not for me. That's
Mm.
not what I love. And I love working on, the idea and the strategy behind creative, but the actual execution of it, it's not where my heart lied. And so it was good for
Mm.
me to learn and kind of see how I could continue to grow across my career and make sure I know enough to be dangerous, but really focus on the areas that bring me joy.
So is that kind of how you think about it? I mean, we've talked about this before in the times. So let's just be clear. Shivram,
Yeah.
you were my boss. We didn't just work together. You were my boss. You coached me. And it's how I think about it. And it's why I wanted you on here as well.
Well,
When
I
you think
appreciate it.
about when you think about that career journey, and you learned a lot going from that government space in DC. I can definitely see how that might be the case, into Taco Bell. Um, Now then you go from Taco Bell to where you go next. Like, how do you think about then that how you approach those different jobs? Is there a particular philosophy around how you think about career journeys and that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I can say when I started, I didn't have a philosophy. And I think I was very lucky to work at a
Yeah.
company like Taco Bell and Yum, where every 18 months they said, stop what you're doing. Musical chairs, you are now moving to a new project, or you're moving to a new
Yeah.
team, or you're going to work on a completely different side of marketing. And so I had the
Yeah.
ability to work on, existing products and our menu. And then I moved to our advertising team, working directly with our agencies. And then I moved to a world where it was more focused on like new lines of growth and new business growth. And then I worked
Hmm.
on new restaurant concepts and development. And then I got to work on our international business. And so like, which was like encompassed development and marketing and menu design and product design and all of these different things, right? Franchisee financing. And so I had the opportunity to get this amazing variety of experiences that kind of taught me, one, like if you want to be a marketing leader, you need to know every facet of marketing, because at
Yeah.
some point, hopefully you make it to a CMO or an SVP of marketing, or some kind of higher level role where you're going to have multiple functions underneath you. So you
Hmm.
may not need to be an expert in everyone, but you do need to know enough to be dangerous. And it's one of my favorite lines. And I think the second
Yeah.
piece is it also taught me like there were parts of marketing that I loved. I loved brand strategy. I loved brand and product marketing. I
Yeah.
loved consumer insights. And there were
Yeah.
parts of the business that I needed to know enough to be dangerous, which was like media planning, which was the creative process, which was, diving into the world of social and e-commerce. Like
Hmm.
those are areas where, especially now, like you can't live without them. And I don't think if I was a traditional brand marketer, I wouldn't have been able to evolve my career if I didn't have those, like tools in my toolkit.
Yeah. So with all of that opportunity, so whether it was at Taco Bell or Yum, or even, I saw all the change that we went through together at
Yeah.
Uber. A lot of those were what I call kind of the unintentional. Like the beauty of working in some of these big corporate companies is there is that opportunity that comes, like, knock, knock, knock. We need you over here because I
Yeah.
know you that you're really good at this one thing, right? And they come and they find you and they pick you and they move you over to this other thing, and so you get all of these other parts of your job that start to fill out this career. So those are the unintentional opportunities that come your way that you just are like, oh, okay, I guess I'll take a left turn and go this way. Um,
Yeah.
wait, has there been that time where there's been more intentional, where you said, okay, you know what, I've got what I've needed out of this. Where do I want to go next? Is there something that you remember about in your career that you said, okay, I'm going to make an intentional change?
Yeah, no, I for sure. And I think it comes down to kind of where you are in your career and what ends up being
Hmm.
important to you. And I think
Hmm.
I had a great mentor. Her name is Melissa Laura. She was our president of the international business, and it was always great about telling us the golden triangle of what you need to look for in a job, which is one, are you well appreciated? Are you challenged? And then are you well compensated? And those are kind of the three things. And a lot of times you're going to have to look at, you might get 2 out of 3 and feel pretty good
Yeah.
about that. And you're lucky
Yeah.
if you get all three. And I think as I went through my career, usually those challenges came from, more along the lines of, are you well appreciated and are you challenged? And
Right.
ideally, if you get both of those, the compensation will come. I
Hmm.
have I'd be lying if I said I haven't taken opportunities for the compensation and immediately realized it probably was not the right place to go. If you're chasing the dollar versus chasing the
Dare I
challenge
say
and
it
the
was a
opportunity.
misfit?
It may have been a misfit. I think that's a great call out. But I think every career opportunity has taught
Yeah.
me a lot and taught me about what I love to do, and I think also taught me sometimes what I don't want to do or what I need to look out for in that next role or that next opportunity. And
Hmm.
I think as you're building your career, I think one, it's good to have an understanding of like what is your longer term goal? Like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I guess most people would probably consider me a grown up at this point in time. I don't know if
Yeah.
I feel that way, but like, I think one, sometimes you need to have, even if it's like a 2 or 3 year plan of like, okay, is it a title? Is it a
Yeah.
role or scope? Is it a project that you feel proud of? Is it an industry or an industry change so that you can feel more well rounded? Um,
Yeah.
or, sometimes it will be compensation. You might be at a time in your life where it is comp. And that's what I need
Yeah.
right now for the next couple of years to hopefully make myself feel settled or buy a house or do all the things that you need in this world or have a kid or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the first piece I would recommend is just like take a step back and think about what's most important to you right now and what are you looking to get out of the next, 3 to 5 years, let's say.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think the second piece is like, starting to look at like what are those companies that hopefully will give you the opportunity to not only get that experience, but also grow. And I think I've
Hmm.
seen that across my career too, where some places have had, this like infinite levels of opportunity. And you can see that and say, wow, like I'm not just coming in for X role. I'm coming in
Hmm.
because I can see the next 2 or 3 roles that are going to happen in my future. And there have been other places where, I've taken a step in my career to say, like, you know what, I'm coming here for this role because I need this experience.
Right.
And this is going to help catapult me to the next level.
Right. I remember going into I had this fantastic mentor that literally picked me up from a role that I was in, and I was working in marketing at the time. And I remember she looked at me and was like, "Hey, can I take a crack at you?" And I was like,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure really what that means,
What do you
but
mean by that? Yeah.
okay." And she pulled me over to sales, and we were in the sales process for a long time. And I remember after 2 years or 3 years working in sales, I called her. She was, my big boss at this point. And I
Yeah.
called her and I said, Susan, it was that time for a promotion, right? It was that time for like, I think I'm ready for more. And she pushed me back. And I still have it in one of my notebooks of, well, tell me what more means to you.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, what are you looking for? Is it compensation? Do you need more compensation? Is that what's going to make you happy? Do you need more scope? Is it the responsibility of what you're doing now that isn't enough? And come back to me in 2 weeks. And I want you to go through and I want you to ask yourself, what does more mean? And then let's talk about what that next step looks like for you. Because she's like, if you can't explain that to me, then you're just going to keep going from side to side to side, and you're never going to be fulfilled or not know where you're going. It's kind of that same concept is I'm taking this because it is that finite little piece of missing gap of my career that I need or missing skill set that I need. And so I'm going to do that. And other times it's this aligns so well with my values, as you and I've been talking about, of I want to take this opportunity because gosh, I know where I want to be in 5 years, and this is going to help me get there because it aligns with my values. And I'm just so in love with this company, right? But it is, if you don't know what that looks like, what the next, what you're ultimately asking for, then you are just going to kind of have these meanderings that really don't it's going to be hard to put that creative thread back together of what how they all tie back to each other.
No, 100%. And I think, I've had, very good friends who have been methodical with their career, like every move is a chess move to get to the next level, and has set them up, whether it's from a career perspective or a role or an industry, like just super smart about it. And I know, sometimes I look back and I'm like, I look at my own career and I'm like, every move has been a positive move and I've learned a lot from it, but I'd be lying if I said I've been incredibly methodical about it. Sometimes it's opportunistic, to be able to take a step and say, does this feel right? And is this right for right now? And, I don't know if I've ever had that grand plan or vision for where I want to be. And we've been blessed to be able to make some of these decisions and do things that are unique and differentiated. But I think as I kind of now look, at the next, set of career moves I'm going to make, and hopefully, it's not too many of them, but, it really comes back to like, is it a company that I feel like I can fit into and a culture that feels real? I think like, is the challenge really fun? And is it something that like, I would feel proud to tell people about? And I think the third piece is like, in an idealistic world, and if we can do it right, like, can I make an impact on society in hopefully a positive way? And I think, there's those, I don't know if I would have said that 10 years ago, but now I feel like I can build a lot of that into my search and my thought process, as time goes by.
Yeah. And I certainly think, the motivations that we had 10 years ago are not the same motivations that I have now, to even 15 years ago. The jobs that I look at now bring me something else and bring me, I was taking Enneagram test yesterday because I wanted to figure out what my number was. I'm a 6 now, and I used to be a 2. And I think I'm probably 2-6, whatever that is now. But I look at it and I'm like, I am approaching this next stage very differently. I don't have the same oomph that I did for certain elements of the job or what I got out of my professional career. I almost have that same oomph for my personal life now. And I'm putting that energy there. And so when I'm looking and evaluating these roles that I'm, looking at today, it's like, okay, you know what? I need to make sure that this is in check with where I want to be personally in my life and in my family over the next 10 years. It's got to be able to contribute to why I work and what I'm doing to be able to set myself up personally for success and whatever success means to me. So it's different. And I can very clearly see what motivated me 10 years ago and how that is different now as I approach, oh gosh, the next decade of my life.
Yeah, no,
which is terrifying.
It's so true, because like if things at work are clicking and working the way they should, that means you have more time for the challenges or the positivity that exists in your personal life. And if your personal life is not working the way it should, that takes away from the time that you get to give to, work. And it's always going to be a balance. And, I think I would like to say I read this somewhere really smart, but I'm pretty sure it was a LinkedIn post where someone said, right, like life is, it's you're juggling a whole bunch of balls in the air, and one of them is like your health, one of them is your career, one of them is your friends, and those are all kind of rubber balls, and then one of them is like your family, and that's a glass ball. And when you drop that one, it breaks, and the rest kind of can bounce back over the course of time. And so it's important to make sure that like you always keep that one ball in the air. And I know there have been lots of times where it feels like, these balls have taken priority, and, this one is teetering close to falling, and it's tough when you start to get to that place and you're like, are my priorities in the right place?
So when you think about this, and this will be my last question before we get to this quick fire round here, but when you think about like the stage of where you are now in your career, and, we talked a little bit about how you evaluate that, but do you, leaving corporate America, which is where we've been for the majority, or for the easy way of saying it, we've kind of been in these corporate America worlds. How do you think about, or do you think about a big transition out of corporate America? Does it look very, very different to what you're doing today?
My dream has always been like, I need to do this for as long as I can to make a nice little nest egg, and then find my way to becoming a college professor. That's always been my
Wow.
dream and my goal is I want to teach marketing. I love marketing and I love spending time with it. And I've been doing some guest lecturing and things like that. And it's so much fun spending time with they're students, I should say. They're not kids, but the students who are just so energetic and they want to learn. And it forces me to stay really well connected to what's happening in the world of marketing and how it continues to evolve. So that's my dream, I want to do this, if I, in a perfect world, if I could do this for another, 10 years and, make sure my kids can go to college, then it's let's go have fun, and I think for me, that would be a pretty big transition, but I think one where hopefully I could start to give back to that next generation of marketers. And the world continues to change and continues to evolve. And I want to make sure that people see that there is still power in the role that brands play. And where we keep moving to, performance marketing and social media and targeted, media and all those things that exist out there today that are incredibly effective and addictive. I hope people still see the value of brand and the role that a brand plays when it comes to your personality, when it comes to your style, when it comes to your values.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Besides the fact of us obviously opening up a cat sanctuary somewhere where we can just go and play with cats all day long. Maybe we have it somewhere of teaching with cats coming into the classroom, kind of like the yoga classes do with the goats. There's something there. We can get innovative on that.
I was going to say, every day it feels like there's a new one roaming around my house. So I think we could probably set something up in my garage at this point.
All right. So I've got 2 wrap-up questions for you. So, to those students that you do talk to, what's the one thing that you think everyone should start doing now, wherever they're at in their personal career journey?
Oh, personal career journey. I would say always say yes. If you get a new challenge at work or if there's an opportunity that comes your way, say yes. Take the challenge. A wise person once told me, always take the hard job, because if you fix it, you're a genius. And if you don't fix it, it's okay, because no one fixed it before you. And so take the chance and, try to do something different. And I will say, in my career, especially as, opportunities have come up in roles where they've said, hey, do you want to take on this team? Or do you want to try this new role? Or do you want to move to this organization? I've never gone wrong saying yes, because one, it shows that you're hungry and interested and ready to grow. And then I think the second piece is you learn so much, and it tests you as a marketer, as an individual, as a business person, as, a good corporate steward, all of it. And you learn a lot more, and you become, make yourself invaluable across an organization.
Yeah. All right. If I were to pull up your phone right now and go to podcasts or go to audiobooks, what are you listening to right now? Either personal or professional?
The 2 podcasts that I've been listening to a lot. One, I love the Prof G podcast. It is a great, business podcast where this guy, he's an NYU professor, big venture entrepreneur. And then he just is super funny, but finds a really good way to break down what's happening in the world and markets in a really fun way, and brings a little bit of marketing into it because he's a marketing professor, but I love it. And I've been listening to it a lot more recently. And then the other podcast I've slowly been getting into is the Smart List podcast.
Oh my gosh.
And
was on it this morning.
And I don't, I don't listen to everyone. I kind of pick and choose based on who the really interesting, actor or celebrity is. But they had one with Arnold Schwarzenegger that I listened to.
Oh,
I
it's
think
so
it was right
good.
before he's so great. And it's just there's the banter between them is really fun and genuine. And then once you add a really funny host or celebrity in there, it makes it even better. So it's my when I go for a walk and I just need mindless entertainment.
Same
it's
here.
great.
Same here. I was listening to one on Kelly Clarkson the other day, and she's always good for the giggle. And you could hear her laughing at the upfront part of it. And I was just what they've done and the active storytelling that those guys do, which although if you listen to them, they hate the word storytelling, but it's the way that they just build that community, that connection with everybody. And just, I feel like I'm sitting in a room with them. It's great.
That's exactly it. And, Arnold said, I need to watch Ozark. And so I started Ozark this week, and it's,
of course.
it's pretty good. Yeah. It's like it feels a lot like Breaking Bad or like a newer version of
seen it.
Breaking Bad, but
I
you
have
haven't seen
never
Breaking
seen it.
Bad or you
No,
haven't seen
I
Ozark.
haven't seen it.
Oh
Oh,
God,
I
you gotta
saw
get back to
Ozark.
it.
We're
Okay,
watching West Wing on like every single night right now. It's
like 17
unbelievable.
seasons.
17 seasons of like 22 episodes a season. It's pretty impressive to see how a show like that still holds up today. And there's an immense amount of pride that goes into it. And it's a really fascinating show. We'll leave all the other
That
politics
show. I
aside,
mean,
but it's a great show.
there's so many like podcasts just about
I
the West
know.
Wing. I mean, like it is a cultural stronghold. I've probably
I
seen an
know.
episode here and there. Like I haven't dug into it,
Yeah.
but I mean, everyone recommends it. So it's
Yeah.
I should if I get 300 days, I'll watch it.
It's worth it. An episode a night, close out with
Yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it's a good night. I'm out. I'm done.
Curb being set in Atlanta and making fun of Atlanta this season has been my like.
I haven't watched
It's
the
been
season
the
yet.
best. It has been the best. You got to watch
Okay,
it's
in.
like the second or third episode. I honestly have never laughed that hard in my life.
Yeah.
Like crying tears. But that, I mean, just it shows ridiculous and brilliant in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, Shivram, thank you. I've always appreciated our conversations. They're always honest. They're always true. I always learn something. There'll be a whole bunch of notes that come in on the episode below, and we'll make sure to drop in a couple of those, including the podcast to Smart List, because if you don't know it already, we'll give you a link to it. But sassy lights going off. That means we're done for today. Thank you. I appreciate you being my first inaugural guest, and I appreciate all your insights.
No, thank you for having me on, and this is such an exciting endeavor. I'm glad to be a part of it, and we're going to make history with it.
I totally think so.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Shivram.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
I am so glad that Shivram said yes to being my first guest on Misfits. It was a guinea pig. He didn't really know what he was getting into, but it turned out to be such a great and authentic conversation and really showcases all the things that I enjoyed about working for him and that balance of IQ and EQ. There was a lot of great, wonderful sound bites that I could pull from this, but there were 3 key takeaways that I wanted to share. The first is, he talked about to have this fulfilling career, focus on finding goals that challenge you, where you feel appreciated and provide fair compensation. It's that golden triangle that he talked about. So as you think about what do I do with that? Well, reflect on your top priorities for the next 3 to 5 years of your career and use that to guide your job search and your decision making. The second key takeaway for me was, being open to unplanned opportunities that can broaden your skills and your experience, even if they aren't exactly what you had in mind. It's that balance of making those sometimes opportunistic moves, the unintentional moves. So when you think about the action item here is, so if you're presented with a new challenge or a new role, say yes. Say yes and view it as an opportunity and a chance to grow, rather than shying away from it, because what it can ultimately build and the new skills that you learn as part of that could take you down a very different path and or make you very well-rounded for that goal that's maybe 2 or 3, or that job that's 2 or 3 rows down the way. And the third takeaway is, as your career and your personal priorities evolve over time, make sure that your professional choices align with your current values and life goals. So take stock, regularly evaluate what success looks like for you and how your job can support your overall well-being and your priorities. And that might look very different at different points of your life. You may need something a little bit different at one point than you need in 5 years from now. Constantly reassessing that and reevaluating that helps you to create that better balance. The key to navigating career transitions, really, it's about staying true to yourself and being open-minded and maintaining a balance between your professional and your personal life. With this approach, you can find fulfilling work that positively impacts both your career and your overall quality of life. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Misfits. Keep it sassy, Misfits.